Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good day. It's really wonderful to be connected to you all, and I'm just going to invite our wonderful guest for this evening's conversation, Sukki, and I think she's waving to me now. So just give me a second. I'm going to invite her to join me. Just one second. I believe she's seeing me now. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you? You look incredible, as per
You
always.
look incredible as well, and it's so nice to be connected. Usually I would prefer the physical hug, my dear, but
Right.
that will do as well. And I'm very happy to see you.
You too. Well,
Thank
this
you
is
so
really,
much.
really exciting. Thank you, everyone who's starting to join. And hi, and also appreciate the people who are joining on a weekday in the UK at
Exactly.
1 p.m. So, what are you doing not working?
And some of the early risers in New York, or in US, I should say.
Yeah, Los
Yes.
Angeles. Hi.
Yes. Los Angeles is probably way too early, but New York, hopefully people are awake, most of them or some of them. But in any case, whatever it is, this conversation will be posted and reposted on all the platforms. So if somebody is not able to view it now or to listen to us in full, you'll be able to do so in a little bit at a later time. So I will say a few words, my dear, about the conversations with Olga series in general, because some of you who are joining us today might not be here before. So I always say just a very few words how this conversation started. I will say just a very few words about you, Sukki, and then we move into the exciting conversation.
Sure.
So, wonderful. So, hello once again, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Olga. I have to say, and I'm repeating myself a little bit, today is even more special day. Well, first of all, because I see Suki, of course, as my wonderful guest, but it's also the birthday of my mom. So I'm sending my mother a very, very happy birthday. She's 87 years young, and I'm happy for her and for my small family as well. So, Conversations with Olga is an IG live and YouTube series I've started during the pandemic about 3 years ago with the goal of introducing my friends and people whom I met through my career and in my life and having an hour-long, in-depth conversation with them about their personal journeys, about fulfilling their dreams, about industry insights, and basically anything and everything they would like to share with me. My main mission and hope is for the series is to inspire and cultivate diverse and inclusive communities and for people to be able to share and learn from one another. So we are on the 49th episode today. Suki, it's my honor to have you as a guest number 49. And you are the award-winning writer, director, producer, humanitarian, and burlesque performer who blends art with important causes. You're also renowned for being a passionate advocate for inclusive representation of women, especially women of color, in film and television. Today, we will talk about your short film, of course, I See Her, and I would like to dedicate enough time to talk about it. You're being a global ambassador of the Sharan Project, and your multiple awards, and so much more. So, welcome, my dear Suki.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And happy birthday to your mum as well. And hi
Thank
to
you.
everyone watching. Shout out to Carolina, shout out to Paige. I can see a bunch of you here. So I'm just honored to have this chat with you and to be joined by so many incredible people. So hi
Thank
everyone.
you, Suki. And just to remember, and I'm sure you remember it as well, I met you over 20 years ago, and you performed beautifully at the Singapore Repertory Theatre Ball that I staged at the time. Your performance was magnetic and simply extraordinary, and it was definitely an eye-opener. But you were not always a performer. You went from the IT industry to burlesque and now to film. Could you talk us through this journey, which is definitely has a very, very unusual changes and passes through it? And how did you
Right.
make those profound changes in your life?
Yeah, it's really funny because it sounds like a bunch of reroutes, but in my head, it's very much an evolution that makes
Mhm.
complete sense, and hopefully I can explain myself. But yeah, basically, I'm South Asian, British mix, half Singaporean, Indian Singaporean, half British. Despite that, I was raised in an extremely Asian household, very culturally stringent, and so my family were very keen that I do sciences. And because I could do sciences and arts, even though I was, you know, exceptionally good at arts. They encouraged me to pursue sciences. So I ended up majoring in science, and it wasn't really a degree that I wanted to do, but I liked the computing part of it. So then I taught myself programming, and I taught myself all kinds of in programming. I don't know, this is a bit of a throwback, but there used to be something called C Sharp and C++. So I don't know whether these things still exist, but back then they did. And I managed to get myself a job in IT. So I was a gigantic nerd, but I still had this unrequited love of arts and this itch that I couldn't really scratch, but I had no formal training in it. I'd done a little bit of classical ballet extracurricular as a child, and obviously extremely passionate about arts, but zero formal training. So restless, knowing that I had this within myself, and the outlet for that was actually fashion. So I got into that for numerous reasons. One, I had to express myself. So I became incredibly extreme with my fashion choices. That was my way of making myself the canvas. Despite being in a corporate office surrounded by mostly men, I really went for it and lent into that. And also it became vintage fashion because at the time it felt like I could create this identity that was irrespective of race, because I think when you're biracial, people are very keen to categorize you in terms of what are you, like, are you an Indian, are you white, what are you? And I spent my whole life, the only country, well, the only place that I think that potentially I haven't been asked what am I is Hawaii, where it's mixed, blended, kind of Asian American anyway. But my whole life my identity's been questioned, and so vintage fashion gave me that identity. And so I started getting into vintage fashion, and through that I heard about the word burlesque. Never heard of it before, never knew what it was. And suddenly there's this art form that doesn't necessarily require formal training. It doesn't require any art school, film school. Anyone can do it, and
Well,
you
not
can teach
anyone. You
yourself.
have to be super talented with a gorgeous body as well. So,
I
I have to
don't
give
know
it to
about
you, my
that.
dear in full.
Super brave, perhaps,
Yes,
but
super brave too.
it's not about being the best dancer. It's not necessarily. It's about taking control of your autonomy as a woman, expressing yourself, making the audience feel good. I mean, 80% of the audiences in burlesque are women, couples as well. So I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to start teaching myself. And it was serendipitous in that around the corner from when I decided this, around the corner from my IT job, a theatre was opening and they were auditioning for variety acts. And so I don't know. I've always been incredibly ballsy, and I also believe in signs. And I honestly don't know what possessed me, but I just walked into the theatre and I was like, I'm a professional burlesque artist, which I wasn't. Give me a job. And they were so convinced by my pitch. I think it's because it was do or die. I just felt like this was my only foray into the arts. I have to go for it. And they said start next Friday. So I had 7 days to
Incredible.
teach myself burlesque off of YouTube. And my first audience was in a 300-seated comedy theatre in the north of the UK. And don't know how I did it. Had to learn how, trial by fire, did. And it was awful, actually. It was really bad. But people
Well,
loved it
that's
because
you
it
judging yourself, but
no,
okay.
I mean, everything went wrong. I didn't know that you have to attach a ribbon to a zip to lingerie in order to be able to
Yes, yes,
undo it from behind. All of the techniques I didn't know, but I
yes.
learned. And I think the women in the audience loved it because they felt seen. They felt like they could take charge of their bodies. They felt, they were represented on stage. And so then with training, I became, more and more, I guess I became better at it, better at it, better at it. And then that's when it became this career, and I quit my job in IT, and I just thought, you know what, the only way I'm going to make it is if I get rid of that safety net at the bottom. I'm just going to pack in my day job in IT, and either I
Incredible.
sink or swim. And it was around that time actually that we were connected, because what I didn't realize was that I was on a the first Singaporean women to do it. And certainly it's said that the first international
Yes.
Singaporean burlesque artist to do it. And so I didn't realize this. And so before I knew it, I'd become this inadvertent role model. I was thrust into the spotlight. We did the first ever legal full strip tease in Singapore. So then it became historical and it just snowballed into this massive career, which ended up with a television show on Netflix. Because it was again timing, the movie Crazy Rich Asians had come out. And so it became this massive career. But how it then turned into filmmaking was, I think, behind it all, even though I really ran with it and I had this passion and also, I don't know whether it was anger, but certainly this injustice of my parents didn't let me do arts. I'm going to become the most successful artist in the world because no one can stop me, and a government can say that this is, inappropriate for public consumption, and they're not going to stop women taking charge of their bodies. Even though I had all of this that took it so far, in my head I was still that girl that just needed that entry point into the arts. And so once I'd kind of got that out of my system, I'm really grateful. I know obviously the pandemic was a horrific thing, but in some respects it gave us all that beat, and I speak from a
Yes.
very privileged position, but it gives that beat to reassess. We are running, we're all running. What do we look like when we stop and take a look at our lives? Are we where we want to be? Are we
Yes.
doing the things we want to
Yeah.
do? And I realized, actually, yes, I want to be an artist, but I don't know if I want to be a burlesque artist for infinitum, forever and ever. So that's when I just kind of thought, actually, what I've taken away from the Netflix show is I'm hanging around the producers and the directors more than the cast, and I'm finding it exciting. The nerd in me is dribbling at it. And so yeah, the year before last, I got this email that was from the Home Office talking about the Enough campaign. And initially, they'd asked me as the talent to create assets to support the campaign. And that again was my sign, I suppose, from, I don't know, the universe, a higher sense beyond what we can explain, energy, I'm not sure, whatever you call it, God, if you're spiritual,
Yes,
whatever it
absolutely. I
was.
strongly believe in it.
Yeah,
Energy.
yeah, energy. And so I just counterpitched and I said, no, I won't sort of star in any campaigns. I won't be the talent, but I will direct a film. And that's how it happened. And cut to a year later, this film became I See Her. We
And we
partnered,
will talk a
obviously.
little bit about
Yeah,
I want to
gosh.
focus on a film in a few seconds, but it's
Yeah.
amazing what you're sharing because to be honest with you, I wasn't sure how to ask you how because it's a difficult topic.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you whether you were okay to share with us your motivations. Is that the, what really brought you into the world of
Yeah.
burlesque and from burlesque into the filmmaking due to you growing up and this stiffness,
Mm,
from what I understand, and repressions that you had
mm,
through your childhood and your
mm,
adolescence. So I really, really, really appreciate for you to
mm.
share this notion with us and to be so open about it. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
thank you so much.
yeah, of course. It's that's interesting because, I think you're right. It comes from a sense of injustice. There's been I don't want to sugarcoat the journey. It's been fueled with pain,
Yeah.
repression, pushing back against that. And there have been incredibly dark times in my life that I've just had to soldier through and push through
Yes.
and make myself this larger than life character in order to get through. And so when I was at the height of my burlesque career, I discovered this charity called the Sharan Project. It's founded by this incredible woman called Polly Hurrah. And she met me. It was actually, and this isn't a this isn't a drop, but we met in Buckingham Palace when we were part of the Asian Women of Achievement Awards, and she approached me and she said, "Will you be the ambassador of the charity?" Now, the charity focuses on women who have managed to get out of or need support getting out of forced marriage or situations of abuse or situations where they've been disowned by their families for the life choices they've made. My family did not take my quitting IT job and burlesque well,
Yes.
especially not, you know, my incredibly strong-willed immigrant father and
Yes.
the rest of the Singaporean Indian, family. it was not received well. And for the longest time, that was the case. And so I understand a fraction of how bad it can get when you do something that goes against your culture or what is perceived as cultural stereotypes. And so obviously then with that resonating so strongly, I said yes to becoming the ambassador of the Sharan Project. I also said to Polly at the time that whenever I get any amount of power or influence, I promise to always give back to the charity. That's something that I felt passionate about. Now, when the pandemic hit, and I'm having these moments of, you know, evolving, understanding who I am, I was met with the statistics that following the pandemic, cases of abuse rose
Yes,
so substantially that the
yes,
entire era was deemed the shadow pandemic, with people back in their homes, children back in their family homes, people like myself back in the homes and cultures of which they, you know, are potentially doing things
yes.
that are in clash of that. Abuse of women and girls spikes because you're trapped in confinement. That was painful for me to understand. So when this campaign came around, it was two reasons. One, because of my past and the journey, I am incredibly moved and incentivized whenever I see any injustice. I feel incredibly passionate about dismantling that or doing something. I can't sit back and provide lip service online. I have to do. I don't know. I have to help. I
Yes,
feel like I have to help because I'd
absolutely.
have wanted somebody like that
Yes,
for me, and I didn't necessarily
yes,
get that. And so
yes.
when I saw these statistics, I thought, one, I must do something because I have the ability to do something, I have the privilege to do something. And two, I really believe that you will never make it in your career unless you are vibrating from an authentic place.
100%. And unless you really incorporate the social causes that you
Right,
champion through anything you do in life, and you do it
right.
so well through you are doing it
That
through your
you
performances, art,
believe
in
in.
film, and this is
Right.
comes with such an authenticity that really, really
you
kudos to you, my
you
dear.
can't fake it. You
No,
can't close your eyes and go,
no,
what will I be an
no.
ambassador of, and point on it and
Yes,
make a film and that film hit. You
absolutely.
can't do it.
Yes.
You cannot feign caring about something, and that comes through the screen. And so
Yes.
that was the other thing, was if I'm going to make a film, I do not want to make a film that isn't completely from a place of
Yes.
truth. And so yeah, so that's how the film came about. Really, it was
And
just
I
I
guess
picked
growing
one.
up and I guess growing up as a biracial and
Right,
third culture kid, your background influenced this film from what I understand from when I saw it,
right.
especially through every element. And I want to talk about it. I want to move into talking more in depth about this
Mm.
incredible film, short film that I See Her. Let's start perhaps with a concept and message. What inspired you? Well, you already mentioned what actually inspired you, but I
Mm.
wanted to see what core message do you hope to convey to your audience through this film?
Yeah, I think that's an important point because I mean, I hate to say it, but domestic abuse and abuse of women and girls in filmmaking has been, you know, done. And that's awful because on one hand, thank goodness it's been done. On the other hand, what a shame it's been done, because the fact that we still have to do it and the fact that we have to come up with fresh presentations of it just shows how prevalent it is, but also just shows that the problem isn't being fixed. In fact, it's actually exacerbated. So that's alarming and disturbing. I think that previously, how I've kind of viewed films, and that's not to say this is the case of every film covering abuse of women and girls, not just domestic abuse, but abuse of women and girls, is often it focuses on the victim of abuse, survivor of abuse, and also I feel like it's very much been um, they are, you know, meek, subservient. This has happened to them, and there's the subtext there is if they were stronger, they might be able to
Yeah,
get out, but they can't, and they need rescuing.
yes.
And I think
It's
that's an
always a
incredibly
victimization.
dangerous narrative,
Yes.
because you know the strongest women I know, and I'm sure both of us unfortunately will know somebody. I mean, 1 in 4 women experience domestic abuse in their lifetime, 1 in 4. So you know, within our friend groups we know, you know, women who've been affected,
Yes.
and some of those women are the strongest women, and you just end up in situations beyond your control and you cannot seek help. So with my film, I suppose I wanted to create real change, and that starts with shifting the lens onto the active bystander. An active bystander is somebody who possibly suspects, observes a situation that might be occurring. That might be that you get a sense that your friend is going through something, you get a sense that a stranger is going through something, and rather just be a bystander in that situation, you become an active bystander. You decide to take action. And I wanted this film to basically educate us to be brave, to step in. Because the other thing is, in this world of mobile devices and isolated, you know, everyone living in their own
Yeah.
bubbles, we're almost discouraged from poking around people's business. I mean, society's created this
Yes.
terminology, curtain twitchers, you know. In Singapore, especially, you have all of these rules about how you are seen in your home. You know, if you're seen nude in your home, it's a criminal offense. Don't get involved in other people's business. There's a shame of
Yes.
that. And so
Yes.
I wanted to dismantle that and just show how you could completely change the course of somebody's life if you step in. Now, obviously, in some situations, you can exasperate the situation by stepping in. So I will say that. And as we head into this more, I'd just like to take a moment to say that if anyone's affected by the conversation that we're currently having, there are resource pathways available.
Yes, and
So
I will
please
mention
seek,
them as well later, and I
please,
will ask people to, and I will ask you to elaborate a little
right.
bit on some of
Yeah,
the
so
organizations as well. So I appreciate that. I also
please,
wanted,
if you feel
absolutely, I,
uncomfortable at any point, you can feel
yes,
free to leave this conversation or seek resources like the Sharan
yes,
Project or Aware, who are available to help and assist. But yeah, sorry, just to kind of follow through on that.
yes.
There are
Thank you.
situations where you can't step in,
Yes,
but in those situations, you can speak to the person that you think is going through the abuse, or you can report it via some of these organizations. Every person that reports, even if they suspect something's happening to somebody they know, that forms part of a case. And when or if that person finally does decide to report that something's happening, or if you step in and you help them support, every single incident that you mentioned to a charity or
yes,
a resource pathway forms part of their case that helps them. So it's never
yes.
intruding, it can only be beneficial.
It's a mindset as well to accept it, because all of us know at least one friend, loved ones, or even some of us suffered, been hurt at some times of our lives, and
Yeah.
yet there are many, not only physically but emotional as
Mm,
well, and yet we don't talk enough about it, and many of us choose to remain quiet for
mm,
one reason or another, as you said, either to
mm,
save the face or
mm,
for fear of the ramification,
mm,
or when others find out. Basically many
mm,
women especially
mm,
find it difficult to leave relationships even if their partners are violent
mm,
emotionally or
mm.
physically. So what you're saying and how passionate and how open you are is really incredible and very, very helpful. And I am sure that you start working on this idea with for such a personal topic. It
Mm.
all because it came from within. It's
Right.
because you were part of
Right.
this unfortunate moments of your life, I should say, and
Right.
so it's
Right.
really something that obviously correlates with your own
Thank
journey.
you. Yeah, it is difficult, but I think we need to dismantle shame, and that doesn't mean that we have to speak out if we've experienced it. But I think what we should do is talk about it, you know, and the more we talk about it, everyone's journey is different. And if you've been through abuse, you don't automatically have to become an advocate, because it doesn't have to become the cornerstone of your personality. But I think that we can become emboldened to help others and to open those conversations, to
Yes,
remove the stigma of shame. And so also
yes,
thank you for creating this platform in which we can
yes.
have these really frank discussions, because we need more of these,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And I think I always always believe, through all my journey, through all the project that I do in stage and books and, in these conversations with Olga, I believe in authenticity. So if the person is authentic to their own selves and if they believe in the cause, if they believe in who they are and what they do, and it all comes from within
Right,
us. So this is how we
right,
convey the true message, and
right,
this is how we entice people to follow us and
right,
to basically make a better future for not only for us but for the next generations. And it is
right.
very, very hard, but this is the only way. Otherwise, the whole world. I'm not going to talk about the world that it is right now, the stage, but in general, the fakeness of so many things and so many
Mm,
people around us
mm,
is devastating.
mm,
So we all
mm.
just I just want for everybody to listen to Suki and to see how passionate, how authentic she is, and really kudos for you. And I wanted to ask you: was burlesque dance influenced you in the storytelling and moving into the film?
Yeah, I think
Was there something
it's
that?
that's a great question. Yes, actually, yes. I think it's about movement. So I think um, I tend to write and direct musically. And I think the reason why as well I was drawn to burlesque is because I played classical violin. I was the lead in an orchestra as a child.
Me too.
And you too. Okay, great. This is why we get on. So yeah, so I did classical violin and so my entire life is consumed by music. When I wake up, I listen to music. When I shower, I listen to music. When I walk down the street, I'm daydreaming soundtracks that don't exist yet. I have this like these songs playing in my head. I mean, I even write little theme tunes for my cats. I don't know why that feels relevant, but I do, so I'm very musically led. And so
Oh, I love it.
m- m-
I want to be in your world,
so
surrounded by what
it's
you're
a
listening to. You'll share
yeah,
with me later.
it's a very melancholic musical, to be honest with you. Very melancholic,
Oh,
though.
I
more
like it
more
too.
theatrical. Yeah. So burlesque is a part of that, and I think how you move your body and how you navigate through space for me has always been quite musical. And so I realized that when I was directing the actors in the film, I'm directing them from that emotional connect to musicality. And as I'm directing them, I'm also thinking about the composition of the soundtrack, how they move, how their movement is related to their emotion. There's this one scene, if you haven't seen the film or been to the screenings, where the character, she the survivor of abuse, Mina, the character's called, she walks through her garden and she's walking to the funeral march. And so the pace of her movement
Yeah.
is, to the music. And in that, it feels very balletic. And it feels like, actually, had I not done burlesque, I wouldn't have been able to grab those beats. So everything's kind of led into it. I mean, I didn't realize it, but looking back now, and you'll probably know this, even in my burlesque career, every single routine I did, I accompanied with a short film,
Yes.
which I was uploading onto
Yes.
YouTube. And
Yes.
I used to
Absolutely. I know.
think, oh, I'm just kind of doing accompanying videos, but I realize now I
Because
was
you
making mini
want to immerse
films.
people. First of all, you want to immerse
Right,
yourself. And
right,
then through expressing it while being completely immersed, this is how you convey everything else to others. And
right.
for your music and the soundtrack is extremely emotional. It's quite emotional. And
Thank you.
was it influenced by your father? And how has your personal connect? Well, you just said how your personal connection to the music really shaped the film score, but
Mhm.
was it influenced in some way by your father?
Yeah, actually, hauntingly so. So just before I made the film, and I think my father got a sense that I was going to become a screenwriter, because I had started adapting something that he had had this idea over. Um, and then unfortunately he passed away before he saw me make the film. And it's one of those things you can't explain. I've never been a religious person. I've been spiritual, but I've never been a religious person. Um, my father passed away, and for the longest time, I felt like I could feel him hanging around very viscerally. I could feel him in rooms, and things happened. You can say they're coincidence or whatever you believe. You have to be there to know. Things happened that didn't make sense, and there was this feeling in the air of being watched, and I felt like it was him. And at the time, I'd reached out to an incredible composer called Ruthless, and she's a fantastic composer. And I said to her, "Would you like to co-compose the soundtrack with me?" And I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I would have these dreams, and I would wake up with melodies in my head. And it's like my father had been walking through my brain in my dream and then coming out the other side when I woke up. And it was like he was, I don't know, it's like that sensation of the most pain I think I've ever felt in my entire life, coupled with him feeling like he was there. It was like his movement was creating these notes, and I would just wake up, I would get on WhatsApp, I would get into my voice recording, and I'd go, "Ruth," and I'd start humming to her, and I'd say, "This, I can't, I've got to get this out. There's this
This is
tune."
incredible.
And that's kind of what and she would get on her piano, and we'd hop on a video call, and she'd go, "Is it like this?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, that, this, the pace is this." And she'd go like this, and then she'd add an arrangement. I'm going to go, "No, no, 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 a slightly different chord, like it feels like that." And she'd one note difference within that 5 note chord, and it was the one, and it hit. And I was chasing the feelings from my memory of him, what I felt like was my father walking into my dreams. And and the film got completed. And the minute the film got completed, I could no longer feel him, like he
This is
disappeared. And I haven't
incredible.
been able to feel him since. And I also know that my father ran out of time to say he was proud of me. Unfortunately, as a very strict Asian dad, he couldn't ever accept, I think, my career as a valid career through just cultural upbringing. It's really hard for a strict Indian Asian, Singaporean Indian father to accept an artist especially filmmaking, burlesque filmmaking. What is that? He
Yes,
couldn't. But I
yes.
really feel like he tried, and he was at war with himself, and he would often take it out. We'd have these explosive fights and then reconcile, because he was so at war with himself over wanting to accept me but not being physically able to. And I just let go and felt like he was gifting me the ability to make this film. And that was his, not "I'm sorry," but I feel like it was his "I'm sorry." And he had given me this gift, and I just ran with it. And so it's hard for me to watch the film back, actually. I have to do all these screenings. I was in a screening that you attended in Singapore at 1880. I've got another one upcoming with the MC of France, another one in Hong Kong, and every single time, no matter how many times I watch it, I get this lump in my throat, because it's like my father's footsteps are walking across my skin, and I just feel both unbelievably grateful of this gift, and then in at the same time desperately sad that the physical version of him couldn't be there to say well done. But that's something
Yeah,
that we
but
live with,
that's
and
something you live exactly.
yeah,
It's an extraordinary story, a really extraordinary story, and I think it's a generational as well, because people of your father's generation and probably of my mother's generations, they're hardcore. They don't
yeah,
know sometimes how
yeah.
express the love
Mm,
in a way that we would love
mm,
them to do it for us. So, but you being able to detect it, to feel it so strongly, energetically, and
Mm,
how much it influenced this
mm,
film and the score especially
mm,
is absolutely extraordinary.
mm,
It's an ode
mm,
basically to your dad, of your
mm.
dad,
Yeah.
and the way you talk is unbelievable. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah.
It's really, I have goosebumps really to listen to the story, and it just makes now this film even makes more sense. And
Mm,
now I want to continue a little bit about the movie and casting choices.
mm.
What was the significance of including the real life survivors and activists in your film? And how did you approach casting to ensure its authenticity?
Right. Yeah, great. I mean, I think it was a case of don't make a film about a community and not include that community. Don't make a film about survivors of abuse and not include
Yes.
survivors of abuse. I feel very, very strongly about that. I think we have a responsibility as filmmakers in positions of power to represent rather than take advantage of or monopolize on stories of other people. I think too often, and this is in filmmaking, it can be in panel discussions, we are taking advantage of people's stories for commercial gain without actually helping the communities. And so when I made this film, it was in part because I'd also had a discussion with a survivor and also an ambassador of the charity, the Sharan Project. And she had experienced domestic abuse. She's an incredible survivor. She's called Calbia Baines. She's also an author. She wrote an incredible book about her experience. She won the Asian Women of Achievement Award. She's phenomenal. And even though I had these wonderful actors that I cast in the film, Nikita and Alexia, I wanted to include Kalbir
Yeah.
for two reasons. One, I wanted to, represent the real people that we're helping here. And also two is because I really wanted her to be able to reclaim her story. I don't know whether she felt this way, but I feel so inspired by her. She's so phenomenal, and she's also deaf, which is an entirely, talk about intersectionality of character. I mean, and especially with disabilities being a taboo within particularly Asian communities and even more so in South Asian communities, I just think that that nuance is so important to be included. And so for me, by including her in the film, yes, I'm representing the communities, but I'm also allowing her to reclaim her power to
As,
turn
a, as
her
an
story as an
individual,
individual
yes.
so that your experience
Yes.
is something that brought you into a movie. And so I don't want to be like everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the worst things that happened in our life, the only way we can continue is to reframe them through a lens of, I wouldn't have this if it wasn't for that.
Yes.
I myself
Absolutely.
have reframed deep pain by saying, oh, but if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have this. And therefore, in a really messed up way, I'm glad that that
Grateful.
happened. Now,
Yes.
that's grateful,
Yes.
grateful. And
I'm exactly the same.
it,
I feel the same through the journey
right,
that I've been
right,
through. It's a difficult journey, but I'm grateful for everything what I had to go
right,
through.
right. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes. That's the
thank
only
you.
way.
It's the only way because
Yes.
so I wanted to be able to do that. And so Calvia stars as one of the friends in the film, and she actually signs the only word that appears in the film, which is the word enough, which is the name of the Home Office campaign. She signs the word. I wanted to give her that moment. And in that moment when she signs it, the whole story flips. And so it's a real important point, but also to include the deaf community, to include people with disabilities who often also can't communicate that they're
Yes.
going through abuse was incredibly important to me.
Thank you. This is incredible. Once again, I'm now continuing to have goosebumps. About your creative process, what were the main challenges during the production of I See Her, and how did you personally overcome
I
these
think with
challenges?
Being a first-time filmmaker, one of the things that I think many of us have to grapple with is unfortunately the finances of it,
Yes,
and I think that's a real thing. I think we can, so incredibly grateful for the entire, cast and crew that came on board and donated their time. Our incredible cinematographer Charlie Knight, Kaylee Bateman, Unbridled Sound, Dirty Robber, and Cynthia and Martin, who just you know have done Emmy-winning productions, and they were like, and Oscar-winning, and they were like, yes, we will be part of this. And so it's really hard to ask for people to help you because especially as a creative when it's oftentimes so poorly funded.
yes,
I think pulling together a team that allowed me to tell the story to the caliber of which I believed this story is deserving of was a massive challenge. And I think the other thing that I kind of did was like I said to myself, I will fund this because I care about it. Even if it completely decimates me financially, I must tell this story. And I really believe that if you vibrate from a place of complete good, the universe comes to meet you where you're
yes,
at. I
absolutely.
was I was determined. I'm like, Charlie's talking to me and he's like, well, camera insurance is this, rentals of the equipment is this, and you've got the gaffer, you've got, lighting, you've got, first AD, you've got all of the camera crew, and I'm looking at the van that takes the kit, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, yep, I'm putting my money down, I'm putting my money down, and it's growing and growing and growing and growing. Bearing in mind, there's 3 times Oscar-winning teams that are part of this now. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just said to myself, I'm just going to deck myself. I have to make this film. And in that moment, my first AD said to me, I've told somebody about the fact that you're doing this. They are a philanthropist and they'd like to meet some of those costs. And in 24 hours, this person had donated to the charity and transferred the funds in, and we were able to
Incredible.
complete the film. And he became our producer, man. So grateful to him. Also so grateful to our executive producer Kim Rowell, who also came on board and helped with the festival strategy, which increased visibility of the film. Is the reason this film has even won awards is because of her. So yeah, funding is a massive challenge, but I think the way to overcome that sometimes is it will never happen if you don't start. Of
Yes,
that, there's a guarantee. And this is any project. It's
exactly.
not filmmaking.
Yes,
It's not filmmaking. The
yes,
bravest act you can do is start. And if you
yes.
fail, at least you started.
It's
But you are
absolutely.
100% more likely to succeed if you
Yes,
start. And so I
absolutely.
think I think that's what it's all about. It's just not being afraid to fail, lose all your money. If you care about something, I think people will come on board. And if you're genuine, even more so, they will rise, the universe will rise to greet you. And for whatever reason, it will just
Yes.
come into existence. I strongly believe
Yeah.
that.
I strongly believe that too, and it's incredible. I'm a mother of a filmmakers.
Yeah,
My son Mark. So
I do.
what you shared, sentiments that you shared, and your reflections are so very close
Mm,
to
mm,
my own home and my heart
mm,
that it gravitates. And what you said is exactly that. But you guys are so passionate, and you believe in what you're doing. And
mm,
I strongly personally believe in personal reflections.
mm,
What we do in life always has an impact on us.
mm,
It has also impact on others as well. And it's a legacy and impact that your film, I see her, will go into the world and is going
mm,
into the world, came into the world for
mm,
broader conversations about domestic abuse and in general that gravitates to the support of the community. And
mm,
this is something that uh, you have done with
mm,
all your love and passion and belief and experience. And thank you so much for putting it together and for giving it to all the world. And I hope that all of you guys who are listening to us and who are listening to Suki's story will be able to support the cause. And just to mention a little bit about some of the ways how you can support. There is an organization of Aware in Singapore that does a great job to support the cause and work on these issues and works on these issues very, very hard. They have actually the upcoming fundraiser as well. And you can, of course, do so much work together with Sukki in UK, like for the Sharan Project itself and the Women of the Future International Program. So I'm sure I will send all the information as well on my caption later on, and I'll tag everyone and all the organizations. So please do support the an incredibly important cause through different channels. I would like to, on this note, I would like to talk a little bit about your awards for the and humanitarian work that you do, because you're extremely accomplished. You won so many awards, and I will read some of them for your humanitarian work, including a Generation T Award, an Asian Women of Achievement Award, 2 times nomination and finalist for the Women of the Future Award, and the United Nations Women's He for She Impact Award. Can you share a little bit about awards? And I know you're a very humble person, but I want to know a little bit about the awards and the process. What was the process like for you to get these awards?
Yeah, wow. I it's bizarre because on one hand, I really don't believe in awards. I really don't believe in awards because I think awards tend to fill a hole that can never be filled. Maybe I'm projecting, but often if we feel like we're not deserving, we crave awards because we feel like that gives us the validation, or certainly for me, that gives me the validation that kind of tries to attempt to fill the gap of my parents not saying they're proud of me, you know. And I think for many people, many brilliant people within the entertainment industry or across the sector, I think it tends to fill some kind of gap, that we haven't received the validation that we want, and awards fill that gap. But of course, as you know, having, you know, accomplished incredible things yourself, it will never fill that. And so you know, I think that it's easy to become caught up in the glitz and glamour
Yeah,
of that, but it will never really fill the hole which we seek to be filled. That can only come from self-acceptance.
I agree.
However, what I will say is that many of those awards that you mentioned do are connected to respect, I think. And I think that coming from burlesque especially has been an interesting route into what can often be a, unfortunately, racist and misogynistic industry. I think that Hollywood or the film industry can create some of the most beautiful, greatest, incredible, society shaping, beautiful pieces of art, and equally can be the most gatekeeping,
Yes,
worst parts of humanity.
exactly.
And I think that as a female director, writer director, when you go into that industry, where you are attempting to dismantle the sexualization, exploitation of women, when you go in as a somebody who has been a burlesque artist, you are immediately up against that because they could potentially picture you in
Yes,
lingerie. I'm just going to say it as it is. And
yes,
so the battle then to fight for respect is even higher. And I think that for that reason, I stayed the course on the awards, because even though it wasn't then filling in something that I needed on a personal note as much for the nobody's proud of me sort of piece, um, it did create that respectability that allowed me to then walk into boardrooms and say, hi, I'm now making a movie, take me seriously. And I think that has been helpful. So what I would say is that awards will never replace the work that you need to do on yourself in loving yourself irrespective of whatever you achieve,
yes.
because to be alive is such an incredible gift. You know, what a privileged position we are in, you know, and anything else is a bonus. And I think if you can really have that gratitude,
Well
like
said.
if we were to die tomorrow, we've done, you've made it. Whoever you are watching, you are enough right now.
Yes,
And because you're watching this, you're alive, you're listening to this. Everything is a bonus. We have the gift of life. And that's not to be sniffed at. We are hurtling around a vacuum on a piece of rock, and we happen to know that we are self aware and we exist. That's an unbelievable feat. Anything's a bonus. But what I would say is that in terms of the industry and respect, if that is what is needed within the sector of which you want to go for it, because it does make that bit of a difference. But even just kind of like pushing yourself, being nominated, etc., it doesn't really matter if you win. All of these things. I recommend it, but it's not crucial. It's not crucial. It certainly shouldn't be the thing that you use to define your level of success or not. But I'm incredibly grateful.
This is
Incredibly grateful.
This is such an incredibly inspirational and incredible motivational speech that you just did without even recognizing it because it was so natural and so authentic. Thank you so much. By the way, everybody, just so you know, Sukki was recently invited to the House of Parliament in London as well in recognition for her outstanding contribution to tracking gender-based violence through culture. So just to mention yet another incredible achievement. I'm so proud of you, Suki, really. I'm proud of you. I know you since you were very, very young little girl, I should say, and look at you. It's really incredible.
Well, I just want
And
to take
yeah,
a moment before you summarize. Just, I know, but I have to take this moment to say that you are one of those people in my life that I really believe that if I hadn't met you, this would not have happened. You were one of those instrumental people. You saw my profile. You were in charge of this massive event, which was culturally significant in Singapore.
yeah,
You didn't know me. We'd never met. You reached out and you took a chance on me, and you taking that chance on me completely changed the course of my life. That event that we did with the Singapore Repertory Theatre just completely
thank
changed
you.
my life, and so I am forever grateful of you
Thank you. I
as
would
a
never even thought
businesswoman.
of this way, but
But yeah,
I'm
no,
humble.
I'm so grateful of you as an incredibly powerful, fantastic businesswoman. But I'm also so grateful that you exist as a person and you continuously put yourself out to support other people. You are remarkable and
Thank
far
you.
more remarkable than
Oh,
myself. And we are all
please.
just privy to you
Thank
giving
you.
us platforms. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Really,
No,
I'm humbled,
I mean it.
and
I mean it.
I'm very vulnerable when I hear that. I'm really thank thank you so
Yeah, I
much.
mean it.
And nevertheless, with all these accomplishments and so much incredible voice and authenticity and power that you have, the social media, and we all in social media, and you are, of course, as well. It could be quite. Unwelcoming. It could be quite dangerous. And I ask this question to most of my guests on the on conversations with Olga. How do you use social media, and how do you face? How do you deal with sometimes with misinformation and
Mm,
keyboard warriors
mm.
as well? How emotionally and strategically, how do you deal with all this?
Well, I consider myself quite lucky in this era of my life, and the Netflix hype has somewhat died down, so the heat is off me as I've shifted to the
Okay,
other side. As I've shifted to the other side of the camera, the heat is somewhat off me. So I enjoy being quite antisocial, actually. I definitely use social media less. But in the
congratulations.
yeah, but in the height of which I used it, and people were kind of sort of watching everything that I did and definitely having a lot to say. I think I had to learn not to take things personally. People don't know you. They really don't know you.
Yeah.
And therefore, you can't take it personally because any criticism is actually a criticism of the character that they've built up in their head. It's
Yes.
not you. And the people that matter are the people that know you, that you physically meet. And so that's really important.
Yes.
I also think that. Sometimes, it is important not to just get caught up in the bubble, the egotistical bubble of yourself. I think there's a lot of social influencers that kind of hang around on social media and they become so powerful that they think they have the right to say anything and they don't listen to criticism. So on the other hand, it's important for you to listen to what people are asking or people are saying. I've made mistakes, where I haven't necessarily always got the tone right, and people have said, you haven't got the tone right. And I've gone, yeah, okay. yes, I will be better, do better. And so, you know, that, but for most cases, I think it is important to really separate yourself from social and online and your real life. And I
Absolutely.
do that through really not
Good.
posting
Yes.
much of my personal
Yes.
life at all.
Yes.
So my thoughts and feelings,
Yes.
100%, all of it, have it all. I'm
E-
very vulnerable, you know,
Exactly.
but my deep personal life, my
Yes.
home, my family, I
Yes.
tend to avoid blasting over social media because I think, you know,
Yes.
the
I
most
agree.
important thing is have a piece of yourself that the
Yeah,
public don't
absolutely.
have. Yeah, yeah.
I totally agree with you. And for me, it's the same.
Mm,
It's important for me to put the content
right.
that I believe in, that it's authentic, and I feel that this will be shared in a proper way, in a way that it hopefully will entice other people to think about something that is relevant to their own lives or to their own
Mm,
feelings, and hopefully inspire people to either think in a certain way or to analyze something or to uh, join into some activity that they haven't done before. So
mm,
I agree with you. Before we conclude, there are two questions that I would like to ask. Well, first of
sure.
all, when I chatted with you just yesterday, you mentioned that you just submitted a script for a major film, and I'm not
Right.
going to ask you what it is because I totally understand that you cannot share
Mhm.
the details at this point. But I would love to ask in general, what's in your future?
Yeah, so I'm very, very fortunate, although I have worked exceptionally hard with no life whatsoever. I have had no social life whatsoever until very recently. I have just been a machine. So I do feel like I'm deserving of it, but also very lucky at the same time, in that now I've just I've completed two things. I've completed a second film already. The screenplay's done, and I've completed the screenplay on my first feature-length movie. And yeah, it's looking very, very good and healthy. I'm starting the screenplay on another thing, which I also can't say. So this is the most boring. I'm doing
No, no,
things, but I can't tell you what
that's
those
fine.
things are.
Listen, it builds
So
it builds
so I
anticipation,
feel,
my dear, and it's
yeah.
curiosity and anticipation, and
Um,
I'm sure I will certainly blast it on your behalf as soon as you allow me to, and as
yeah.
soon as I will know myself. So
Thank you.
yes, it's
So
fine. We're
so
accepting it.
things are coming, and I
Great.
really do feel, I think what's the most important takeaway from all of this is I feel like I'm finally the person that I would have been without the trauma. That's big. That's big. So I really feel like everything that held me back in my life, I finally caught up to the point of which I'm the person that I would have been potentially without it. But I guess I'm the person that I am because of it.
Yeah.
So I feel very, very at peace with that. And I'm excited, but equally, I think what's shifted in me, and perhaps this is maturity, is I could take it or leave it. You know what I mean? And so I'm excited about it, but it doesn't define me. And I think Oprah once said that irrespective of her talk show, she will succeed because she's the person that's going to succeed, and her talk show doesn't define her. So, irrespective of the movies that are upcoming, I think that even if they died a terrible death, which, you know, touch wood, they're not going to. I think I
Well,
feel like I've succeeded irrespective of it, and my career does not define me, so I'm very
That
content.
that that's incredible answer. And the journey is just as important, actually more important than sometimes the destination. So
It's
I
the
think
fun
this is
part.
it's
It's
a
the
fun
fun
part.
part.
It's yes, it's a fun part, and it's what develops us into the better human beings, and this is
Mm,
how we learn. So yes, for sure. And another last question. I would like to start an experiment on my conversations, and I
okay.
hope that you'll join me in being my first guest to do
Okay.
so. I would like you to ask one question of my next guest, and I obviously
Okay.
will mention my next guest that the question came from you. So,
Ooh.
what do you think I should ask my next guest?
Okay, my question that I would like you to put forward to your next guest is, what do you do that makes you really happy? And I don't mean what makes you happy in life. I mean, what is it, the most purest thing that you do in your life that brings you happiness? And that can be going for a walk, tickling your pet dog or fur baby under the chin, you know, poking a frog, talking to your family. What's the one thing that you do to make yourself really, truly happy? That's what I'd like to know.
That's a wonderful question. That's really wonderful. It's so new, my dear, and it's really, really wonderful. Well, my dear Suki, it was an
Oh,
amazing conversation. It was
thank you.
just so inspiring, so touching, so emotional. And thank you so much for sharing your experience with all of us and with me, of course, in particular. It's amazing the work that you
Thank you.
do, the projects that you work on, the way you developed and keep developing. So keep on to it. And thank you
Oof.
for caring. Thank you for caring. You know, you will cry and I will cry as well. So really. So I
Thank you for
want to.
having me.
I hope and I will make sure that this conversation is shared with so many people around us. I will be posting this episode in on all my social media, including on YouTube as well, of course, and I will send you the link. So please share it. I will share with the communities, and I will re-listen to this again and again and again. Thank you so very much, my dear, and I look forward to see you soon in person. And
Thank you.
I'll chat with you. I'll call you, and thank you again. You're true inspiration, and
Oh,
I love
thank you
you.
so much for having me. I love you too. And take care of yourself.
Take
And
care
thank you,
too.
everyone. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.